On April 14, 2014, residents of Chibok community in Borno State were shocked as gunmen invaded the government girls' secondary school in the community and took away over 200 schoolgirls. The Boko Haram sect would later claim responsibility for attack with a video of some of the girls in captivity. The abduction generated several reactions, both locally and internationally, all demanding for action from the government to secure the release of the girls. The children were aged between 16 and 18 years and were in their final year in school. There was initial confusion about the number of girls kidnapped, but after a head count, police confirmed that 276 girls were kidnapped, and on May 2nd, 53 of them escaped while being transported to another location. There were several attempts to rescue the girls, but the efforts, which include negotiation and military operation, did not yield much fruit at the initial stage. While some of the girls escaped, like Amina Nkeki, who was rescued by local vigilante with a baby on May 18, 2016, others were rescued after some negotiations with the group. 21 of them were released by the group on October 13, 2016, after negotiation with the federal government. The military secured the release of Mariam Mayanga. She too was with a baby when she was rescued. The army also secured the release of another girl, Rakia Abubakar, on January 5, 2017. She was rescued with a 6-month-old baby. The sect also released 82 of the girls on May 6, 2017, after successful negotiation with the federal government. Meanwhile, the sect continued to publish videos of the abducted girls, sometimes claiming that some of the girls had died during a military operation to dislodge the group. On January 4, 2018, the Nigerian military stated that it had rescued Salome Pogu, another of the kidnapped girls. It's been 7 years since the abduction, and the campaign is still on for the rescue of the remaining 112 girls. The painful part for the parents of those still in captivity is that no one knows their fate.
That's the topic of our discussion this morning. We have three gentle people to discuss this matter. We have Ayuba John Bassa, who is the National Coordinator of the Goza Christian Community Association, GCCA. Mr. Bassa, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We also have Aisha Yusufu, who's been a prominent activist in the Bring Back Our Girls movement. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Alan Manassa is a strategic team member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. You're also welcome as well.
Thank you for having me.
It's been 7 years, and it's unbelievable that we're still here. But for a number of people who have ever wondered how it was possible for so many girls, over 300 of them, to have been kidnapped at the point, perhaps with the happenings of recent times, the kidnap of even more children, boys, girls, from school, some of them even tertiary institutions, perhaps that answer has now been given as to how it was possible. But 7 years on, the very first school where this happened, we still haven't been able to recover all of the children. The question is, how come we haven't given up hope 7 years on? Let me start with you, Mr. Bassa.
Hope needs to be kept alive at all time, but disappointment with regards to promises made every day, now and then, and you don't see any action, do have the tendency of extinguishing hopes from the hearts of the people. But we are being built up with hope as part of our life. We'll continue to put hope. Perhaps God will bring someone who will bring hope to life and to reality. Until we see it with our eyes and hold it with our hands, we will continue to put hope. Even though a lot of disappointment, the military has disappointed us, the politicians have disappointed us, the civilian JTF have disappointed us. Whoever has a mouth to say with regards to our security in this country for the past 7 years have disappointed us. We don't have any hope in them, but we have hope in God. We are naturally built in hope. We'll continue to put our hope. Perhaps God can use a stone. God can use animals. God can use anything, not on our government again, not on our securities again. Our hope lies on God alone.
However, the agitations are still on. When you hold these memorials every year without fail, what message are you really trying to send? Let me ask you, Madam Aisha Yusufu.
Well, first of all, hope endures, and the message we're trying to send is the fact that the Nigerian life matters, and that every one of us must be treated the same, irrespective of whatever place one is from and what is the economic status of one. For us, we say no Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian, and the fact that Chibok girls were taken away 7 years ago, and they have not all been brought back, says everything about the value that the Nigerian state places on its citizens. And we look at it and we say that the rescue of our Chibok girls is not a privilege, it's their right as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And when we make demands for them, we are not doing them a favor, we're simply doing that which is right. And it's very important and very instructive for Nigerians to understand, and the world to understand, that there are still 112 Chibok girls that are in captivity. And my daughter, on the 1000th day of the abduction, said, as long as Chibok girls remain in captivity, we all are in captivity. And like you alluded to earlier, and I hope people have seen it now, that our silence about Chibok girls, our doubt that indeed an abduction happened, which was done by the previous government, unforgivable at that, and which a lot of people have taken up to today. There are people who still say the abduction never happened. All of what we did emboldened the terrorists to come and know that they can take citizens, and they're doing, and also give the government enabling environment to abdicate their responsibility.
Well, it is sad indeed. But nonetheless, this government might claim that was in the last government, that they have tried to bring some of these girls back. Do you think that for those that are left in captivity, is it a lack of will to bring them back, or do you think that they themselves maybe they think that the cost is too great? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not about governance. Is not about individual. It's about functional systems. It's about continuity of what we know that is lawful and right to do. So the fact that Chibok girls were abducted during President Goodluck Jonathan does not mean that any incoming president will feel like it has not happened during my time. It's the same police we have, it's the same Nigerian military we have, it's the same all security architecture we have in the country that the incoming CNC inherited. So it's not about himself. And I can say categorically, yes, it's about absence of will and grandstanding on failure and impunity, because we are not talking about animals, we are talking about human beings. Over 100 human beings that have been out there, and an issue of providing excuse for anything is not even there. The right thing to do is, what strategy has been used in getting them back that was successful? What strategy again can we employ and use? Do we need increase in capacity? Where can we get that capacity and harness and make use of it and get the girls back? These girls are not kept in the moon. They are kept on our soil in Nigeria. And it's not that there was complete absence of intelligence on these girls. There have been repeated intelligence on and on from those escaping from the insurgents. If you go to any of the camps in Borno State, you will see new entrants almost on daily basis. The displacement tracking matrix of IOM have been reporting that one again and again, and each time I visit any of these camps, I do meet people that will say, recently I met a lady that said the clothes she was wearing when she escaped, she borrowed it from one of the Chibok girls because she washed her on, and she used the Chibok girls on to escape in the night. So, which means we have intelligence on ground that the government need to make use of it and get the girls back. So it's clearly absence of will. It's clearly absence of that interest that this issue need to be treated with urgency.
I asked that question because in recent times, I don't know if you've been following the conversation. In the wake of more children being kidnapped from schools, there have been conversation as to whether or not, whether ransom should be paid. The federal government denied that there was ever ransom paid for the return of the girls, of the Chibok girls who were brought back, even though a lot of people do think that ransom was paid. The federal government said no such thing happened. In many instances, since the Chibok girls were kidnapped, and in new instances where we've seen children being kidnapped, it will seem that ransom has been paid. There has been conversation in that regard. And some people will say, at that point, we noticed that there was an upsurge of terrorist attacks, which is still going on. So on the one hand, some people will say, is it wise, even though the federal government says there was no ransom paid, but is it wise to empower the terrorists, so to speak, because we want to get some of our girls back? I don't know what your thoughts have been on this matter. Even generally speaking, we're still talking about the Afaka 35 who were taken from the College of Forestry. Do you want to quickly intervene on that?
I would say the primary responsibility of any government is to protect the lives and properties of each citizen. And any government that cannot protect the lives and properties of its citizens is not fit to be called a government. One of the things that people need to understand is, like I said earlier, it's a right for every Nigerian that is taken away to be rescued by the government. Remember that the government, first of all, had failed that citizen. We're talking about Chibok girls now, had failed them by not adequately protecting them from being abducted by the terrorists. So when it comes to the rescue of our Chibok girls and any Nigerian in captivity, the government knows what to do. It has all the information. It's either negotiation, military action, or a combination of negotiation and military action. What we say is that do nothing is not an option. Nigerian being taken away and then we forget about them over there, it's never and will never be the option to take. And the government, with all the information it's supposed to have and the resources within it, should be able to choose what is the best way out. When we talk about there is a surge in insurgency and all of that, what's our military doing? Why are we wasting billions of dollars on them? Why are people being recruited? We've lost a lot of soldiers on ground. They're not being given adequate leadership. They're not being given strategic leadership. Why is the military and the Air Force not working hand in hand? We get information. People say that, Boko Haram have been sighted somewhere, and then you're expecting, why is the Air Force not taking them out when you sight them? So all of this comes back to the box of the president and commander-in-chief. We have a commander-in-chief who is supposed to give strategic leadership, and that is missing, and that's what needs to be done. When people say that, should we negotiate for people or get our citizens back, the question I always ask them, when they are taken, would they want the government to do everything that it can to bring them back, or would they want Nigerians to turn away? Otherwise, every one of us is a victim waiting to happen. And I think Nigerians need to understand that the victim card is going round. Being a victim in Nigeria is no longer a matter of if, it is a matter of when, because we are all victims waiting to happen. Who is next to be taken away?
It's a big question. It's a big question, but I don't know, first and foremost, if you want to, intervene on that particular question, but there are people who, who will be wondering how the community has coped, the coping mechanism, because some people will say, to wait for 7 years, the anxiety of that is enough. I mean, you reported yesterday that over 20 Chibok parents have died waiting for their girls. The anxiety of that is enough to kill any parent. What has been the coping mechanisms for those who are still very much around?
Like I earlier said, disappointment, promises not being fulfilled every day. Every day. I could picture when the Chibok issue earlier happened, and most of the people within Goza settlement then will tell you the houses where which 3 days after they are captured were divided into. Those Chibok girls have been in Goza for more than 3 or 4 weeks. 3 days in this house, they will be changed. They will be changed into other houses and be, being taught on how to recite scriptures or so within Goza. So if you go to Goza, it's as if the memory is today. They will say it is this house and this house they are being kept. So the moment you hear this kind of a thing and your reflection come back to life and say, why not keep them there? By now they would have been out and all of us would have seen them. The issue of financing is that who benefits into that money? If the government will know that they are being kept in number 1 house, 2 house, and the 3 house, if you remove the government money and still pay, who are you paying when you know clearly where they are? Are you not paying the people that are guarding them for you for political reasons? I am sure if then Jonathan were in the political party, because it was a rival political party with Borno State, those girls wouldn't have missing. They would have been there. So they were used to frustrate him. They were used to frustrate the counterparty during that time. The memory is still in the heart of these people, because when you see and know that today they are there, the next day they are there, the next day they are there, and you are helpless, who will bring my daughter? And until they disappear.
In other words, they were used as political pawns.
Of course. That I will continue to say. Even if you go to Goza, town, ask anybody, they will still tell you they were used, for political rivalry, just to discredit the powers then. And I will continue to say that because everybody knew step by step. I could point the 4 houses. I could point the route which they pass. And, the average people then in Goza Wakani, that's an area within the Goza, will tell you the story, how it happens, and how they are being carried away, how they are being fed.
Are you in touch with the parents of Chibok?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Well, what has been their coping mechanism? With the knowledge of this, how have they been able to, just keep life going?
Well, it's not been easy with them because, it's not easy to take care of disappointment, actually, like I will continue to say. I say what we know it would have been possible and has been turned into impossibility. It is not, to an average Chibok parent, they do not see the insurgents as their enemy. They always see the government as their enemy, because it was the laxity then of the government, rival government, who decided to do that for political reason. So they don't see the insurgent as the greatest enemy. Even though today you cannot go out and farm like in Kautikari and Kwayagurum, you can't go out to farm. Within the Chibok settlement, you can't go out. And then they still do not see the problem as it comes from the insurgents. They see it as if it is a government problem, because if they say we should go to farm today, we will go and farm and come back and nothing will happen. If they say they will bring out our daughter, since they see and they know the trends which our children follow, one day at a time and one step at a time, and they refuse to bring them. So, that is an average Chibok person, and they are right. The government is at fault, not even the insurgents in the first place, because they have every right to stop that from day one. They refuse.
If I can just interject in a bit. First of all, I just need us to understand that a president is a president, and the president of Nigeria is the commander-in-chief. And one of the things that we do as citizens is to try to sometimes give them a leeway and make excuses for the president. When the Chibok girls' abduction happened, there was a state of emergency in Borno State. So literally, the military was in charge of Borno State, and we had a commander-in-chief that is at the top there that ought to have given instruction. So all this conversation about whether there was a rival party or not, for me personally, I think it doesn't come into play. When we look at the Kankara abduction was done from the state of the president. There's no rival party, so who is going to blame who now in that instance? I remember in 2014, a lot of people from the northern part of the country would say to me, oh, you know, and did say that a lot, that the reason why the insurgency wasn't being won was because Goodluck Ebele Jonathan is for the Niger Delta region, which is my region, by the way. And I used to tell them, no, it isn't. That even if the insurgency was happening in the Niger Delta region, it would have still been the same thing, because it's all about capacity, it's all about competence and incompetence that was at play at that time, and it's still at play right now. When we have citizens who are busy siding with whoever government is in power because they like the party or they like the president, or we're losing, and the terrorists are winning, the insurgents are winning, the criminals are winning. Of all of them, they do not care who is in power. They are united in inflicting terror on Nigeria, and I think we should put the issue on our government, because the government's primary duty is to protect our lives and our properties, and where that government fails, we must hold them accountable. In terms of, like Dr. Alan Manasseh said earlier, intelligence wasn't gathered and isn't still being gathered about Chibok girls. The 57, when Chibok girls' abduction happened, 276 were taken away immediately. 57 were able to escape immediately after the abduction. Do you know, up to today, none of them had ever been questioned by our security agencies to find intelligence from them. How then were you? There was no political will to go in and rescue them. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, for 19 days, never spoke about Chibok girls. He didn't believe there was an abduction. So if there's a rival party in Borno State, and that's the reason why it was taken, was it the rival party that also made former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan not to speak on the issue of the Chibok girls for 19 days? We must learn to focus and hold government accountable. It's not about conspiracy theories. Like at the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we say that even if it's the parents that took away their own children, we must ensure they bring them back. These are little children we are talking about. It's 7 years. And the way I put the Chibok girls up, when I look at the years, when it happened, my daughter was 12 when it happened. Today she was in year 9, which is like year 3. Today she's in the university, in her second year in the university. But the lives of Chibok girls and that of their parents have been on hold for 7 whole years. And let's remember, when you take away the child of the poor, you are not just taking away their child or their children. You are taking away a whole lifetime, a whole generation. Because to the poor, they do not have investments, they do not have assets, they do not have properties. They invest everything in their children. And their children are the ones that are supposed to take care of them. They are their pension and go on to take care of their siblings. Most of the Chibok girls, they are first daughters, they are first children. And you know what that means in the African context.
Exactly. I think I will align myself to...
I will let you intervene in the matter when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Ayuba John Bassa, National Coordinator of Gwoza Christian Community Association, Alan Manasseh, who's a strategic team member, Bring Back Our Girls movement, and Mam Aisha Yesufu, who is also a member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, are still with us in the studio, and we're talking about the Chibok girls, 7 years on. Just before we went on break, you were about to align yourself with Madam Yesufu.
Exactly. Issue of conspiracy theory around the abduction of the Chibok girls, to me, is that does not arise because as a president and as government, good governance deserves that. Accountability is key. And as the Bring Back Our Girls movement keep asking, we want the truth, nothing but the truth. All the conspiracy theories, who is responsible in exposing them and in punishing those that have caused pain upon people or in breaking any law. It was the president, the commander-in-chief. So there is no excuse whatsoever to be provided by anybody that it was a push to frustrate someone in government. If I am the president, I have the apparatus of governance in my hand, the security architecture, and any other thing. So it is my own responsibility as a president to expose and to reveal whichever conspiracy theory on ground. Girls were abducted. There was intelligence before the attack. They were abducted. The president decided to keep mute for days, and he did nothing until the girls keep disappearing and being reduced into a smaller number. So there is no excuse that anyone can provide 7 years down that it was a push by politics or politicians or political parties to frustrate anyone in government. You will allow yourself to be frustrated as a president only when you decided that inaction is the best thing for you to do.
I'll throw this to Lagos shortly, but I don't know if you want to quickly respond to that, because I don't know, what they seem to be saying is that, you know, you seem to be providing a leeway for the former government to have folded its arms and done nothing about the situation.
Their view is okay. Everybody has his own view, but the way I felt it then, that was exactly what I said. Would it help if the former chief security of the state supported the former government? To me, that would have been very, very easy.
Yeah, but do you agree that, I mean, if he had all the apparatus of government
the fault belongs to the government then. Actually, they have every tools to do. The reality will come if we have similar things that were of what is happening in Lagos. This bring back this NSAS panel. It should be established in Borno. The kind of information you will get then, it will give us a leeway too. It will give us a big leeway.
The judicial panel on the bring back, or will it be on the Chibok girls, or will it be on abductions in general?
Total abduction.
It should be on the entire terrorism.
Entire terrorism. That will help a lot. That will help a lot. What you could hear may be different with what all that we are saying, and the reality will come to light.
Indeed.
And also to say that the Borno State governor wasn't the chief security officer at the time Chibok girls were taken away. Remember, there was a state of emergency in that state.
But he was still the governor.
He was the governor, but
yes,
he wasn't
he was
in charge of security. There was a state of emergency. So that ordinarily he would have been taken away from going on about the other affairs apart from security. But in terms of security, he was no longer in charge. It was the military that was in charge of security.
Yeah, but he was still at that time. Some people would not excuse him, because as long as he wasn't taken away, he also had a duty in terms of security to the citizens of his state. If he was still governor, and the duty of government is to provide security of lives and property, the primary aim of any government and governor and president and local government chairman should be to provide security, even though there was a state of emergency and he wasn't taken away as stipulated in the Constitution. There would have been arguments that he could not wash his hands clean and say, no, I was not in charge of security at all. You don't think so?
No, I don't think so, because as long as that was it, then there shouldn't have been a state of emergency if he was still the one in charge of security. Even the architectural security of Nigeria today, the reason why we cannot hold state governors accountable when issues of insecurity happen is because it's at the federal level. And so even with the case of the peculiarity with Borno State, again, was that there was a state of emergency. The other affairs, how he behaved or whatever, that's a different thing. But when it comes to security, with our present architectural security state of the nation, you can't hold state governors accountable. They have that name, but it's just in paper. When we begin to have state policing and all of that, the box will be on their table to do something for their states.
Well, that's definitely subject for another conversation. But let's quickly flip this to Lagos now. I know my colleagues have questions for you here.
Well, yeah, thank you, Malkwe. Let me begin with what you began with, Malkwe, with Mr. Allen, when you were talking about the coping mechanisms of the parents. My question is actually, Mr. Ayuba, about the girls that have been that have gone to their parents. What's happening to them? We hear that some of them seem to be fine. Some of them have refused to go back to school. Some of them have gotten married. Some of them do not believe that education is for them any longer. Can you give us a snippet of what is happening to even the ones that have been released and back to their parents now?
Yes, issue of trauma is not cannot be cancelled, especially on younger age like those girls. To cope with traumatic actions would take longer period, and decision making by them again will still take another time. But and then most of the parents desire that they see their kids very close to them. They don't want them anywhere again. They have missed them enough, and they want to continue to see them very close to them. That will serve as a kind of comfort. I have regained my daughter back. Please stay near me. I want to see you. What I went through when you are not around was so much. So seeing you closer to me is a healing. But the first ones that came back, you know, some of them must have graduated from up to university. Those ones have their life back, and they do visit the parents, and the parents are quite happy to see them graduates, and they have their life in their hands. But the ones that came back later, they are the ones that the help wasn't there enough, sponsorship or privilege, and also desiring that their daughters needs to be with them. Let them marry if they want to marry. Let them go ahead and establish their families and so. But I believe if there were a kind of that they will still be in a safer hand. We can train them. They can go forward. They could have passed through a kind of counseling session until they regain back their minds and go back to school. That would have been order, but those privileges wasn't there. It wasn't as the ones that the first batch. That is the problem.
Well, Madam Yusufu, if I can ask you this one, we recall what the president said at the time he was being inaugurated, where he said, we cannot claim to have defeated Boko Haram without rescuing the Chibok girls and all other innocent persons held hostage by insurgents. Fast forward 2021, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs was quoted as saying that the federal government has not forgotten the Chibok girls. Does this in any way bring comfort and hope?
Absolutely not. It doesn't bring any comfort at all, especially from a party and a government that when they were in opposition kept used the Chibok girls as a campaign slogan. And at every moment, the president and the party, the APC, would talk about Chibok girls in 2014 and early 2015. And right now we have 112 of them that are still in captivity, and that nothing has been done about it. At the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we are asking for disclosure and closure. There's a General Sabo report that up to now has not been made public, and why is that so? In terms of the girls that had been, just to go back to the question that was asked earlier, the girls that have been rescued, the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we were stopped from seeing the girls that have been rescued, and also they were forbidden from speaking to us or reaching out to us. It's once in a while you just see them sending message to say they're thanking us for what we did. But the most important thing, I think Dr. Alan Manasseh will be able to speak more on this, is the fact that in terms of the girls that have been brought back, yes, there's says the earlier ones returned are the 57 that escaped on their own. Some of them have actually finished university. But the later ones that were rescued, the ones that were rescued, the ones that came and negotiated for, most of them are frustrated. Some of the stories we hear back, they've been kept in one place. A lot of them are frustrated because after being rescued from 2016 to almost, I think, as of last year, if I could remember, some of them are yet to write the SSCE. And it's enough to be frustrated. How can you, for 4 years, you have not yet been trained to even be allowed to write SSCE? You're kept in one place and not allowed to associate with other students. It has been quite frustrating for them. But I think it's something that Dr. Allen Manasseh will be the one to be able to elaborate more on that.
Yes, I think as strangers as far as the issue of Chibok girls is.
Just one moment, Mr. Allen. Madam, is there any reason given for not allowing these children to interface with the necessary publics that wish to see them? Is there any reason given by government?
I think that we haven't gotten any reason, and this question should be thrown at the government. Why is it that they are shielding them from those that they know would be able to hold them accountable on the issue of rehabilitating our Chibok girls and ensuring that they get the life that the terrorists try to truncate? Because if at the end of the day we do not get every Chibok girl to have gone to school, then the terrorists would have won, because what they really want is to ensure that their lives are truncated and they do not get the education that they are supposed to get. So the question ought to be answered by our government, and these are the things that we are all asking for. We are asking for disclosure from the government. We are asking for closure. We are asking for feedback mechanism. In the last how many years, the government haven't even spoken to the parents. They don't say anything, and every year, once in a while, they bring out a statement that sort of like copy and paste and change certain words and change the dates. That's not the way. That's not the way of governance. Government should be there for the people, honestly.
If I may, let's quickly go to Mr. Manasseh. Then, if you have more information on how these girls have fared.
Exactly. On the issue of the Chibok girls, just as Aisha said, out of the 21 and the second batch of 82, none of them have graduated any school. They were all taken to the school in Yola, AUN, and the complaint that led to quite a number of them dropping out of that school and some of them even getting married was that they were writing their final high school exam. They were done with WAEC. They were writing the NECO before they were abducted. And to them, if yes, their level of education was low, looking at where they were coming from and the kind of teachers available at the school, but they were thinking that any preliminary class should be done within first or second year of the preliminary class. But down the line, there was no clear communication to them that, okay, you are going to write your exam at so time, then you proceed into school, or there will be a specific kind of exam for you to be considered as an entry qualification for you into the university. That did not happen, and that was why some felt like we are not becoming younger. We were taken when we were about 16, 17, 18, thereabout, and today, they are becoming above 20, so they feel like they were young women, and some of them felt they need to get married because they did not see a clear departure from where they were in Chibok and the kind of the quality, the approach, and the focus, the future of their education when they were taken there. So they dropped out, and some of them are not going back to that school again. And even those that are still in that school, every now and then they do lament. Even yesterday, before the start of the campaigns globally, I have been in touch with a lot of them. They are still complaining. That was why.
What is the complaint system around? The
complaint was that why they desire acceleration of whatever they are doing. You understand? Some of them feel like they need to be opened up. They need to interact. Even in that school, they are kept to themselves. They were not allowed. They are not allowed to relate with the other students in AUN, which is supposed to be another form of psychosocial support. And that was why I was against even the kind of rehabilitation that the Chibok girls passed through when they were kept at Women Development Center and nobody was having access to them. Before they were rescued, I was part of a lot of civil society network that teamed up, and they were working to develop psychosocial support and any other form of support, waiting for the Chibok girl to be rescued. And Immediately the Chibok girls got rescued, what we were expecting was for the government to say, okay, civil society network and NGO, these are the girls now, what do we do? Because government alone don't have the capacity to do most of what the development partners will come together and do. So all those team that we've built waiting for the Chibok girls to come back, none of them had access to the Chibok girls. They were blocked, kept at the Women Development Center, and even when UNFPA donated fund about $2 million for the rehabilitation of the girls, have we gotten any accountability about what happened? No. So these girls left that place, and when they went to Yola, there was one that was even dismissed because she kept getting angry, she kept snapping out, because her rehabilitation was not completed. So we keep talking, open these girls up, let them tell their story. Let them interact with other students, because that will also give them a broader look at life. And then when they are open up, it's not just because government is ready to pay tuition fee for them at any school and then they are dumped there. If anyone has ability to be taken by an organization or by family to be taken to another school in another community, let that be done.
Mm-hmm. So Mokwe, what is happening is that there is captivity in freedom. Mm-hmm. They've been brought back, but they are secluded from other students. They are kept on their own, and they're increasingly getting frustrated. And it's really not fair. After 7 years after you were abducted, you were writing your SSC, you are still at that stage 7 years later, because they have not even been allowed to write the SSC for them to be able to enter university. And so they are frustrated.
So what sort of
I have some of them.
What sort of schooling then are they doing at AUN?
I don't know. I have 10 of them that was sponsored by a couple and one human rights lawyer in America. They were taken to the US out of the 57 that earlier escaped. Mm-hmm. Some of them have graduated university, and they are doing very well. If you engage them, you know that yes, there is progress in as far as these ones are concerned. Then they are from the same class, from the same community. So it means if these girls were exposed, were taken to other schools, they would have done better. I remember when we went to Chibok with Gordon Brown, the former UK Prime Minister, the first thing he said is, where are the other girls? I want to take them to school in the UK. And he was ready to, even the ones that came and spoke with him, they were about 7. He said, please, can I have the parents of these girls? Let me please get their consent, process their travel document. I will take this as my responsibility to take them to school.
So what happened?
What happened was issue of blocking them from the state government. No, these are, the governor will say, these are my daughters, I need to take care of them, I will take them to school. And you talk to the people at the local politician, at the level of the local government, they will tell you, I need to get clearance from the governor before I do this. And the office of Gordon Brown keep waiting and waiting, nothing happened. And you remember, he was the same person that brought the issue of safe school initiative on board. And what happened? The Chibok school has not been completed. The Chibok school is not in use, And we had about 3,000 other children that were part of that school from Form 1 to Form 6, aside the 503 students that were writing their final year exam.
So it would seem that as a result of this particular abduction, rather than for Chibok as a community to even be able to heal and even maybe fare even better, maybe as a result of attention being focused on their community, they don't seem to be faring any better.
It's absolutely not happening, because let me tell you something. Even the safe school component that had to do with the transfer of students, at some point, no single student from Chibok benefited from the transfer window. We had to make an issue because by then we had some people that migrated from Chibok and they settled somewhere in some community in Kuje. We had to talk to Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, then as a Minister of Finance, to put pressure on the steering committee to even go to Kuje and profile some of the students for the transfer window. If not, as far as Chibok school was concerned, no single student was taken as far as list coming from Borno State, none. So what we are saying is, when we ask for accountability, these are the kind of things we are talking about. We are not saying everything must be, upgraded or changed overnight in Chibok, but there are simple basics. You know the content of the Safe School Initiative. How many millions of dollars were donated for the Safe School? And we know that Chibok school, how much will it take? The prototype was presented to us that, okay, this is the design, this is what we want to be built in Chibok. Let them take that design today and compare with what is on ground. A substandard building that every breeze will just pull something down, and then 7 years down, we cannot prove to Boko Haram that, yes, we cannot be pushed, we cannot be cowed into accepting your narrative that, yes, education is actually a taboo. By building something in Chibok and turning the school into somewhere that the children will come in and say, yes, now we are safe, now we are comfortable because we are seeing something different. As I speak to you today, the entire local government in Chibok, there is no school that you can go and find one single computer or library.
Right. Mr. Manasseh,
there are people finishing secondary school that they have never set their eyes on simple computer.
Right, Mr. Manasseh, if I can come in just a moment and take this to Mr. Bassa. I mean, from this conversation we're having this morning, the government clearly has a lot of answers to give. And it now makes sense that the theme for this year's commemoration is disclosure and closure. But Mr. Bassa, the government, yes, has a lot of questions to answer. But just yesterday, one of these questions was put to the government, the Minister of Information and Culture. And this is what he had to say. I'd like you to tell me what you gleaned from the response of Mr. Lai Mohammed. Please take a listen.
Today being the anniversary, is it the 6th anniversary? 7th anniversary of the abduction of the Chibok girls, and what Nigeria is doing, what the government is doing about it. I think the government has more than ever demonstrated its concern for the issue of the security in the nation through the town hall meeting it held in Kaduna less than a week ago. There is need for our traditional rulers and our religious leaders to continue to encourage interfaith, inter-ethnic marriages.
So that was part of what the Minister of Information and Culture said. But Mr. Bassa, what did you glean from that?
What has interfaith marriage going to do with security, for God's sake? Someone who could not even keep record of what these girls has passed through after 7 years of turmoils, and he is just missing out on the basics. What has their conference or meeting going to do with bringing back these girls when knowingly these girls are still in captivity and we need to bring them back? These insurgents, I think Shekau declared that there will be no light in Borno State. And even after fixing the light, he went and still bombed the light. He warned them that until they give him light in Sambisa, there will be no light in the whole state. This man exists, and he's still there. And we are busy doing conferences, saying things about interfaith marriage. What has that going to do with Shekau or the atrocity of the insurgency in this country? For God's sake, please, my dear minister, as much as we love you and you are part of this country, know how to talk and know what you are saying at all time. Give people hope. Speak as if it pains you. That empathy should come out of whatever we are saying, especially the government officials. If it is his child, if one of his child is among the Chibok girls, I'm sure that's not how he's going to speak. But since it is something that we can just come to the air and air out our view and say whatever we want to say and think that we are pleasing people, that's not the best for this government, and that's not the best for every leader. Please know what you are saying at all given time. Security matters a lot for the people.
Okay, we need to go to break quickly, but when we return, we'll round off on this topic. But know this, the conversation still continues, so please stay with us. Oh, you're welcome back. We're winding down on this conversation. But Mrs. Yesufu, I don't know if you want to maybe briefly respond to what you heard the minister said, but I'd like you to also add to it the fact that, for me personally, one of the most remarkable things I find interesting about this movement is the hope you have kept alive for 7 years. And I wonder, do you sometimes fear the worst? I know you have the hope, but do you fear any worst? And even if the girls return today, what are your concerns, really?
So for me, just hearing what the minister said, what struck out for me is the impunity. The impunity of knowing that nothing will be done to him. It doesn't matter. He can decide that he doesn't know the numbers. Because yeah, we would say that sometimes we do forget certain things. So there was no reason to have asked, is it the 6th or the 7th? Just say anniversary. That means you even care for the people. But when you have impunity, where they feel that, oh, they can say and do anything, and there's no repercussion for any bad behavior, it goes away that way. It's really sad on that issue. On the issue of the Chibok girls, absolutely, hope alive. We know that our government, the Nigerian government, has what it takes to rescue our Chibok girls, to account for every one of them, not just our Chibok girls, Leah Sharibu, and everyone in captivity. We have what it takes to crush the Boko Haram. We have what it takes to go after them and win this war against insurgency. Yes, there are moments where we are down, moments when you look into the eyes of the parents, you don't even know what to say to them, because for 7 years we've been telling them, you know, to hold on to that hope, to hold on to that hope. There are moments you feel that you fear the worst. Yes, some of the girls could be dead by now. But the most important thing that we keep saying is the fact that every one of them must be accountable. And what every Nigerian need to understand is the fact that as long as Chibok girls are not accounted for, it simply means that there is zero value on the Nigerian life, and every one of us should be worried, because what happens if we are taken away? Just hearing the minister talking about they had some conference in Kaduna, does he know that there are students, Africa students, that are still in captivity that the government hasn't brought back? Is it about them meeting and drinking and having some gist over drinks, and that's it? That's the kind of security we are asking for? No, things have worsened, and we've seen a situation whereby we are all prisoners in our houses. People can't even travel. You can't even go out the way you used to go before. You can't even travel to neighboring states. Nigerians are basically living in open prisons, and that's not the way to go.
Well, at this point, we have to thank you for coming. I can see that, you know, I don't know if the groups are all coordinated and together. Enough is Enough also released a statement on the anniversary. Is that also part of your statement? The Abuja part of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, is it also part of your statement?
We have Enough is Enough is an organization of its own.
Indeed.
Yes, they have their own statement. We all work together. Abuja has its own, of course, that we put out talking about the disclosure and closure. And then there's a global statement, because Abuja is not just only, Bring Back Our Girls movement is not just only in Abuja. We have Lagos, we have Washington, and other places. So there's a global statements being released differently, and also activities that are going on.
The 7 demands that are in that statement, they are also a part of what you're asking for?
Yeah, basically, on the overall, they are basically the things that we also are asking for. But most importantly, that disclosure, it's very important. The General Sabo report should be made public. What investigation? So that we stop all of these conspiracy theories. This happened. Even if it happened, let it come out. Let the people be punished. Wherever, if there are people who have done any wrong, we can't just allow the nation to just keep going or grappling on all of these conspiracy theories that are out there.
I have to thank you. Thank you for always keeping this in the consciousness of Nigerians, that indeed, you know, so many of our children were taken away at this time 7 years ago, and that, you know, we must never forget until they all come back safely. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Ayuba John Bassa is the National Coordinator of the Goza Christian Community Association, Alan Manasseh, Strategic Team Member, Bring Back Our Girls Movement, and Aisha Yusufu. You all know Aisha Yusufu. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. That will be for this segment, and we'll be back shortly to take on another matter. Please stay with us.